Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The fluorescent lights above my hospital bed buzzed like angry insects as Evan stood over me, his shadow cutting across the thin blanket that covered my numb legs. His face twisted into something I barely recognized, hard, impatient, and almost bored. In his hands were divorce papers, crisp and white, already filled out. The morphine drip beside me beeped steadily, but even that constant rhythm could not dull the blow of what he said next. "Sign it," Evan said, slapping the papers onto my lap like a waiter dropping off a bill. "I want a perfect wife, not a burden in a wheelchair." His voice was flat, not even cruel in a dramatic way, just matter of fact. That made it worse. I stared at him, at the man I had been married to for 5 years, the man whose promotion celebration dinner I had been driving home from when the drunk driver ran the red light and slammed into my car. My throat felt raw from the breathing tube they had removed yesterday as I forced out, "You are serious?" My voice sounded thin but clear. Evan did not flinch. "Dead serious, Janelle," he said, pulling a pen from the inner pocket of his suit jacket, the same pen I had saved up to buy him for his birthday. "I have already met someone else. Someone who can actually be a partner, not a patient. Sierra does not need me to do everything for her." The name hit me like a second collision. Sierra, his colleague from work. The woman whose name had been floating casually through his stories about long meetings and late deadlines. The one he told me I was being paranoid about when I mentioned how often she came up. In that instant, every little dismissal, every deflection, every "you are overthinking it" snapped into place with brutal clarity. My right hand trembled as I reached for the pen, but the tremor did not come from weakness. It came from rage, cold, steady rage that felt cleaner than any emotion I had felt in years. I flipped through the pages without really seeing them. If there were traps there, I did not yet know them, but at that moment I did not care. If this was who he truly was, I was done begging anyone to stay. I signed my name on each line with an almost eerie steadiness. Evan's eyes widened just slightly, surprise breaking through his arrogance. He had expected tears, bargaining, promises that I would recover faster and return to his definition of acceptable. Instead, I slid the papers back toward him and said, calm and flat, "There. It is done." He recovered quickly, his mouth curving into a cold smile. "Good," Evan said. "Since you are so independent, you can pay the hospital bills yourself. The insurance is in my name, remember?" I lifted my gaze and met his eyes directly. "Okay," I said. Just that one word. No anger, no panic, no pleading. The stillness in my voice unsettled him more than any hysterics could have. He waited for me to crack, to ask how I was supposed to pay, what I was supposed to do. When I stayed silent, he shifted his weight, cleared his throat, and turned away. The expensive cologne he wore filled the small intensive care unit room as he walked out, the rustle of papers loud in the sterile air. His footsteps echoed down the hallway until they faded completely. The silence that followed did not feel hollow. It felt like a door closing and a window opening at the same time. I turned my head toward the tray table and reached for my phone, my fingers clumsy but functional. My legs lay useless under the blanket, but my hands, my mind, my will, those were still mine. The locked screen showed 3 missed calls from my best friend, Nadia. I swallowed hard. Of course, Evan had found a way to limit visitors, even from here. Control was his favorite language. The door opened and I tensed, but it was only Nurse Carla, the kind woman with tired eyes who had been checking on me every hour. "Are you all right, honey?" Carla asked as she adjusted my 4-line. I saw that man leaving. He looked furious. I took a breath and surprised myself with my answer. "I am better than I have been in years," I said. And as strange as it sounded, I meant it. Carla checked my vitals and gave me a long, assessing look. "Sometimes the worst injuries heal faster than the ones nobody can see," she said quietly. "You are stronger than you think." "I can tell." Her words settled in my chest like a small anchor. After she left, I called Nadia. She picked up on the first ring. "Finally," Nadia said, her voice tight. "That man would not let me see you. How are you? What is happening?" "I just signed divorce papers," I said calmly. Silence hummed on the line for a long second. Then Nadia said, "Tell me everything." I told her. I told her about Evan's words, about Sierra's name, about him threatening to cut me off from the insurance, about how he had barely visited since the accident. Each detail I spoke out loud seemed to loosen something knotted inside of me. "That absolute disgrace," Nadia said, her voice shaking with fury. I am coming there right now. And Janelle, there is something you need to know about Sierra. My fingers tightened around the phone. Tell me. Nadia hesitated. They have been together for over a year, she finally said. I saw them at that restaurant downtown 6 months ago, holding hands. I took pictures. I wanted to tell you, but I needed proof. Then the accident happened and everything spiraled. My chest tightened, but the pain was not as sharp as I expected. It was almost clinical. Send me everything, I said. Every single picture, every screenshot, every timestamp. While I waited, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of machines around me. The accident had broken my bones. Evan had been breaking my spirit for years, slice by careful slice, and I had called it love. When the photos came through, I opened them one by one. Evan and Sierra at restaurants, fingers intertwined across white tablecloths. Evan and Sierra walking through a park, his hand at the small of her back. Evan and Sierra kissing in his car in a parking lot I recognized near his office. The dates stretched back 14 months. During our anniversary, during my father's surgery, during nights he claimed he was working late to build our future. The door opened again and my neurologist, Dr. Hill, stepped in with his tablet. Mrs. Williams, he said, his tone brighter than the day before. I have good news. The swelling in your spine is reducing faster than we anticipated. With intensive therapy, there is a strong chance you will regain movement in your legs. You may even make a full recovery. For the first time since the accident, I felt my lips curve into a genuine smile. When can we start? I asked. Dr. Hill's eyes warmed. Eager, he said approvingly. We will begin tomorrow with gentle movements. But I must be honest, this is going to be painful and difficult. Many patients give up when the progress is slow. I shook my head. I will not give up, I said. I have a lot to do. He nodded. That is exactly what I wanted to hear. After he left, I opened the Notes app on my phone and began a list. Not a list of grievances against Evan, but a list of actions. First, call Martin Ellis, the lawyer who handled the paperwork for my software consulting business. Second, access my private business account, the one Evan had never bothered to ask about because he thought my work was a cute side project. Third, remember who I was before I let his voice become louder than my own. My phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. Mrs. Williams, this is Janet from hospital billing, a cautious voice said. Your husband was just here trying to access your insurance information and bank account details. We denied the request since he is not listed as your medical power of attorney. I wanted to confirm that is correct. I closed my eyes briefly and exhaled. That is absolutely correct, I said. And please make a note. Evan Williams is not to receive any information about my care, my bills, or my condition. If he comes back, call security. Janet paused, then said quietly, Understood. And for what it is worth, good for you. The rest of the evening turned into a quiet storm of calls and decisions. I called Martin, who listened without interrupting as I laid out what had happened. His voice hardened as I spoke. I will be at the hospital first thing in the morning, he said. Bring your business documents. We're going to straighten this out. I called my bank and placed alerts on every account. Then I called my business partner, Kristen, who I had barely seen in months because Evan always had a reason for me to cancel our meetings. Janelle, oh my God, Kristen said when she answered. I heard about the accident. How are you? Why did Evan tell everyone that you did not want visitors? I stared at the ceiling. Evan is out of the picture, I said simply. I need to know the status of all our projects. Every single one. And I need you to tell me if he has contacted any of our clients. There was a pause. He did try, Kristen said. He called me last week, said you were incapacitated and he would be taking over your client communications. I told him absolutely not. I warned all our clients to ignore him and wait until they heard directly from you. Tears burned behind my eyes, but they were not from sadness. They were from the sharp, shocking relief of realizing I was not as alone as Evan had made me feel. Thank you, I whispered, for having my back when I did not even know I needed it. Always, Kristen said. Now get better so we can crush this quarter like we planned. Nadia arrived an hour later, slipping in past official visiting hours with Carla's help. She walked in carrying a bag stuffed with my favorite things. Real pajamas, not the thin hospital gown, my laptop, lip balm. The mystery novel I had been halfway through before the accident. She took one look at me and stopped short. You look different, she said slowly. Not just hurt. Different. I feel different, I said. She pulled a chair close to my bed and took my hand. You are going to be all right, Nadia said firmly. Better than all right. I know you, Janelle. Before Evan, you were a force. You built a business from nothing. You did not shrink for anyone. Somewhere in there, that woman is still here. I squeezed her fingers. She is back, I said quietly. And she is furious. Good, Nadia said. Anger gets things done. She took out her tablet and slid it onto the bed. I did some digging, she added. I called in a favor from a friend who works in Evan's office. It is worse than we thought. My chest tightened. Show me. One by one, she pulled up screenshots of text messages between Evan and Sierra. They were not just having an affair. They were planning things. Once I get rid of Janelle, we can use her business contacts for our own consulting firm. Evan had written 6 months earlier. What about her recovery? Sierra had asked. She will not recover enough to matter. And if she does, I will have already taken everything that counts. She is always too trusting, too soft. She will probably even help us if I play it right. I read that last line 3 times. My jaw clenched so tightly my teeth hurt. Too trusting, I said. Too soft. Nadia watched me carefully. Is that how he saw me? I whispered. As something easy to manipulate? Nadia shook her head. That is how he wanted you to be, she said. But he miscalculated. You are not soft. You are kind. There is a difference. Before I could respond, Dr. Hill returned for rounds and tested the sensation in my legs, pressing along my feet and calves. Feel that? He asked, pressing his thumb against the bottom of my left foot. There was the faintest tingle, like static. Yes, I breathed. A little. Dr. Hill smiled. Good. Very good, he said. Your body is responding. I am moving your therapy schedule up. We are going to take advantage of this. As he left, Carla came in with my next dose of medication and quietly closed the door behind her. Mrs. Williams, Carla said, glancing toward the hallway as if to make sure no one was listening. I am going to tell you something I probably should not. Your husband tried to change your emergency contact information yesterday. Said you were too medicated to make decisions, and he needed full authority. My stomach nodded. What did you do? I asked. I told him he needed your direct consent. He got angry. Said you were dramatic, that you were exaggerating your injuries for attention, that you probably were not even hurt that badly. He wanted us to start the discharge process. Carla shook her head. I have been a nurse for 20 years, she said. I know what real trauma looks like. You are badly hurt. You could have died. What you are going through is real. I needed you to hear that from someone who has no stake in your marriage. Something inside me cracked open, not into tears, but into a sharp, focused determination. Thank you, I said quietly, for seeing me. The next afternoon, physical therapy began. My therapist, Calvin, was kind but direct. This is going to hurt, he said as he adjusted the braces around my legs. Your body has to remember how to talk to your muscles again. Every step will feel harder than it should. I gripped the rails of the therapy bars. Push harder, I said. I can take it. For 90 minutes, we worked. Tiny shifts, attempts to wiggle toes, efforts to bend knees that felt like lifting concrete. Sweat ran down my temples and my arms shook. But at the end of the session, I managed to move my right ankle on purpose. Just a fraction of an inch, but it was mine. You are going to make it, Calvin said, his voice certain. I have seen hundreds of patients. You have something most do not have. What? I asked. Purpose, he said simply. When he left, I propped my laptop on the hospital tray and opened my work email. My inbox was flooded, 47 messages from clients and colleagues. I started answering each one personally, letting them know I was recovering and still committed to their projects. I wrote clearly, professionally, no mention of Evan or Sierra. I was not going to let my life's work be overshadowed by their betrayal. By the time I closed my laptop, my arms hurt from typing, but my mind felt clearer than it had in months. That evening, my parents called. My mother, Gloria, cried openly as soon as she heard my voice, while my father, Leon, asked detailed questions about my doctors, my prognosis, my needs. We are flying in tomorrow, he said. I do not care what Evan said about not needing us at the hospital. You are our daughter. I took a breath. You will not have to worry about Evan, I said. We are getting divorced. There was silence. Then my mother's voice came through, steadier. Thank God, she said softly. Janelle, I am sorry. I should have said something years ago. Your father and I never trusted him. He was too charming, too eager to separate you from us. But you were in love, and we did not want to push you away. I felt a lump in my throat. You saw it, I said quietly. You saw who he really was. We did, Leon said. But now you see it too. That is what matters. The next morning, Martin arrived in a navy suit, carrying a battered leather briefcase and a look that said he was ready for war. I have been your business lawyer for 3 years, he said, pulling a chair next to the bed. Now I need to be your divorce lawyer as well. Tell me everything. I did. He took notes while I talked, his expression darkening with each new detail. The affair, the hospital scene, the threats about the insurance, the attempts to access my accounts, the credit cards I had never seen. Janelle, Martin said when I finished, last year you asked me to register your consulting business in your name only because you were uneasy about adding Evan as a co-owner. You remember? I nodded. You said he suggested making it a joint venture, but something felt wrong. Best instinct you ever had, Martin said. Over the past 6 months, Evan has tried to access your business accounts 3 times. He has contacted your clients twice, claiming to represent you. He even tried to register a business with a similar name in his own name. I blocked everything I legally could, but I could not tell you without your direct request. The morphine could not touch the pain of that realization. He was planning to steal my business, I said slowly. He was planning to steal everything. Martin nodded. He failed, he said, because you kept that one part of your life separate. Now, about those divorce papers you signed, did you read them? Shame pricked at me. No, I admitted. I just wanted him gone. Martin exhaled. Good instinct again, oddly. He structured it so you would get nothing. No alimony, no share of the house, and responsibility for all joint debts. But you signed those papers in an intensive care unit while on heavy pain medication. Any judge with a conscience will set that aside. What do we do? I asked. Martin's eyes sharpened. We let him think he won, he said. We let him believe the divorce is going exactly as he planned. Meanwhile, we gather everything, his financial records, proof of fraud, evidence of the affair. When he is comfortable, when he is sure he has destroyed you, we file the real petition on your terms. A slow, fierce satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Do it, I said. Over the next several days, my recovery and my strategy grew side by side. Nadia brought me coffee and updates. Evan had shown up at my part-time office, trying to convince my boss, Barbara, that he would be taking over my accounts. Barbara told him to leave or she would call security, Nadia said, almost gleeful. He had printed business cards, Janelle. Business cards with your client list and his name. I almost choked laughing. Did he talk to any clients? I asked. He tried, Nadia said. But every single client called Barbara or Kristen to confirm. Not one of them took him seriously. Mr. Patterson from Northbridge Manufacturing told Barbara, "We hired Janelle's brain, not her husband's ego," Nadia added. Laughter burst out of me before I could stop it, then turned into a small, shaky sob. Some things he cannot steal, I said. Respect. Trust. Nadia nodded. Exactly. Meanwhile, Calvin had me working harder in physical therapy. By the end of the week, I could stand for 4 seconds with support. It felt like standing on top of a mountain. My parents arrived with enough homemade food to feed the entire floor. Leon set up what he called the command center at the small table in the corner of my room, organizing Martin's documents, medical records, and a careful timeline of Evan's actions. "We are retired," he said. "We have time and we have experience. We are going to help you make this case so tight that he cannot slip through any crack." My mother sat by my bed, holding my hand and watching me stand between the therapy bars like it was a miracle. "There is something else you need to know," Gloria said quietly later that afternoon. 5 years ago, right before your wedding, Evan came to our house when your father was not home. He asked if we had any savings set aside for you, an inheritance, college fund, anything. My stomach clenched. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "I lied," she said. "I told him we had nothing. But we do. Your grandfather left you $150,000. We did not tell you because something in the way Evan asked felt wrong. Like he was calculating you instead of loving you." I stared at her, stunned. "You were protecting me," I said slowly. Gloria nodded. "We were trying to," she said. "Now that money is yours whenever you need it, for legal fees, for recovery, for a fresh start." I took a long breath. "Thank you," I said, and the words felt bigger than gratitude. They felt like grounding. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel like I was falling alone. By the time I transferred to the rehabilitation center 2 weeks later, I could walk 12 steps with a walker. The rehab facility was nicer than the hospital, focused on rebuilding instead of just stabilizing. My new physical therapist, Amy, greeted me with a firm handshake. "I read your file," she said. "Your recovery is already ahead of schedule. If you are willing to work, we can do something remarkable here." I smiled. "I am very willing," I said. "I have places to be." The days at rehab settled into a rhythm of intense therapy and deliberate rebuilding. 3 sessions a day, strength, balance, and walking. By day 5, I climbed 10 stairs, my legs trembling with each step but holding. By day 7, I walked the length of the therapy room without a walker. "You are our star patient," Amy said with a grin. "Most people at this stage are still using wheelchairs full-time. You are practically jogging." I laughed, breathless. "Give me a few weeks," I said. "Then we can talk." Between sessions, I turned my rehab room into an office. Kristen and I held video meetings with clients. One of our largest accounts, Lawson Technologies, wanted to triple their contract. Another new company wanted us to consult on their app development. "We are going to need to hire more developers," Kristen said one afternoon, excitement bright in her eyes. "Do it," I said. "Start with 2. We are not shrinking to fit anyone's comfort ever again." Martin and his associate, Harper, came by twice a week with updates. "The district attorney is filing charges," Harper said one afternoon, laying documents on the tray table. 3 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of fraud, 1 of forgery. "Evan will not be able to talk his way out of this. The credit card applications with your forged signature are clear. The withdrawals from your joint account total $30,000, all transferred into an account in his name." Leon wrote everything down methodically, occasionally muttering under his breath. "He also emptied your joint checking account the day he brought you those divorce papers," Martin added. "All $8,000. I am guessing he thought you were too broken to notice." I nodded slowly. "Let him keep it," I said. "He can enjoy his $8,000 while I keep my business account." Martin smiled. "Speaking of which, that account has $340,000 in it from your consulting fees over the last 3 years. You opened it in your name only after he called your work pin money, remember?" I did remember. I remembered the exact tone he used. Dismissive. Amused. Rehab did more than strengthen my muscles. It shook loose my illusions. One afternoon, Nadia came in with photos from the house I technically still co-owned with Evan. "Sierra is living there full-time," she said, flipping through images on her phone. "Her clothes are in your closet, her makeup on your bathroom counter. She is sleeping in your bed." I studied the photos and waited for the rush of anger or jealousy or grief that should have come. Instead, there was nothing. "Let her have it," I said. "I never liked that house. He chose everything." "Who are you?" Nadia asked, eyes wide. "I am the version of me that existed before Evan," I said. "The one who lived in that tiny apartment with the purple walls and mismatched furniture. The one who stayed up until 2 in the morning writing code because she loved it, not because she was trying to prove herself." Nadia smiled, eyes shining. "I missed her," she said. "I missed you." A few days later, Martin called with another development. "The police interviewed Evan today," he said. "He claimed you opened the cards and forgot. But the forensic handwriting expert's analysis is ironclad. The district attorney is moving forward. Also, Evan's company has completed an internal investigation. They discovered that every major innovation he claimed in the last 2 years came from your work." The next morning, Evan's former boss, Mr. Turner, came to the rehab center with his company's attorney and human resources director. They sat in a conference room Amy had arranged, and I walked in under my own power, wearing a maroon dress my mother had bought me as a celebration of my progress. "Mrs. Williams," Mr. Turner said, standing. "Thank you for seeing us. I will be direct. We are terminating Evan's employment immediately. Our investigation shows he presented your work as his own. We are prepared to issue a public statement correcting the record and to offer you a consulting contract if you are interested." I glanced at Martin, who nodded slightly. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I have questions. How did a company of your size not verify his claims? How did no one notice that he could not explain the systems he supposedly built?" Mr. Turner's jaw tightened. "We failed," he said. "We believed confidence over evidence. That is our responsibility to fix." I leaned back, the strength in my legs matched by the strength in my voice. "Put everything in writing," I said. "The statement, the termination, the acknowledgement of my work. Then we can discuss any contracts." That afternoon, the rehab center's security office called Amy. Evan was in the lobby demanding to see me. They asked whether they should escort him out. Yes, I said without hesitation when Amy relayed the question. And please note that he is not allowed on the property without legal approval. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with messages from an unknown number. You did this. You got me fired. You ruined my life. I will make you pay. This is not over. I forwarded every message to Martin and the detective, then blocked the number. Amy found me stretching in the therapy room afterward. You okay? She asked. I am fine, I said. He is the one losing everything. I am just getting started. She nodded slowly. I have watched a lot of people rebuild their lives here, she said. What you are doing, healing your body while rebuilding your entire future, that is one of the most powerful things I have ever seen. The last week of rehab felt like training camp for the rest of my life. I walked the length of the therapy room and back, then circled it again. Amy put me on the treadmill, then on balance balls, then through agility drills. You are going to end up in some medical journal, she joked as I jogged slowly, my legs steady and strong. Most people in your position take 6 to 8 months to reach this point. You are doing it in weeks. I do not have time to move slowly, I said, breathless and smiling. By the time I walked out of the rehabilitation center on my own 2 feet, 23 days after signing those divorce papers in the intensive care unit, the world looked different. The sun felt warmer. The air felt sharper. Leon and Gloria walked on either side of me while Nadia followed behind with my bags. You are glowing, my mother said. I feel alive, I replied. For the first time in a long time, I feel like this is my life again. We did not go back to Evan's house. We went to my old apartment, the one I had quietly kept as an office and escape. The purple walls were still there, the mismatched furniture, the photo of me at my university graduation, the framed certificate from my first big client. This place feels like you, my father said, looking around. It always was me, I said. I just forgot for a while. Over the next months, my world expanded faster than I could have imagined. Lawson Technologies offered me a contract worth over $1 million to overhaul their infrastructure. My own consulting firm, now officially named Williams Technology Solutions, doubled its client list. I hired junior developers, then project managers. We moved into a small downtown office with big windows and cheap coffee, and I stood in the middle of that space one afternoon and thought, I built this while learning to walk again. The divorce proceedings finally hit the courtroom. I walked into the courthouse wearing a bright blue dress and low heels, my posture straight and steady. On the other side of the aisle, Evan sat next to his attorney, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. His suit hung looser, his eyes darted, his posture hunched. When our eyes met, he looked away first. Judge Elaine Porter, known for her sharp mind and sharper rulings, took her seat and flipped through the files in front of her. I have reviewed Mr. Williams's original petition and Mrs. Williams's counterpetition, Judge Porter said. The discrepancies are significant. Evan's attorney, a tired-looking man named Harrison, stood. Your Honor, my client filed for divorce in good faith during a painful time, he began. The judge raised an eyebrow. Good faith, she repeated. Mr. Harrison, your client filed divorce papers while his wife was in an intensive care unit, structured the agreement so she received nothing and assumed all debt, and then attempted to take control of her business and intellectual property. I am struggling to find the good faith in that. For the next hour, Harper laid out our case with surgical precision. She showed the forged signatures on the credit card applications. She presented bank statements documenting every unauthorized withdrawal. She called Kristen, who testified about Evan's attempts to take over our clients. She called Mr. Turner, who confirmed that Evan had presented my work as his own. She played recordings of Evan's text messages, read aloud his plans with Sierra to use my contacts to launch their own firm. When it was my turn to testify, I took a breath and stepped forward, the sound of my heels steady against the wood. I spoke about the accident, about the intensive care unit, about Evan's words as he slapped those papers onto my lap. I spoke about the affair, not with bitterness but with clarity. I spoke about waking up in a hospital bed and deciding that if Evan was walking away, I would make sure he walked away from someone he could never have controlled in the first place. When Evan's attorney tried to suggest that I was being vindictive, Judge Porter cut him off. I have seen vindictive, she said. This is not vindictive. This is a woman presenting facts. If those facts make your client look bad, that is because his actions were bad. She turned to Evan. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Williams? Evan stood, his voice shaky. Your Honor, I made mistakes, he said. I did not mean for it to go this far. Janelle is exaggerating. We were married. Couples share finances. Judge Porter's gaze was unflinching. Mr. Williams, you forged your wife's signature multiple times, attempted to steal her clients, and used her work to advance your career, she said. You brought divorce papers to her hospital bed days after a life-threatening accident. That is not a misunderstanding of shared finances. That is calculated exploitation. She paused, then picked up her pen. Here is my ruling. The original petition is vacated, she said. Mrs. Williams is granted the divorce on her terms. Mr. Williams will assume all marital debts, including the mortgage. He will reimburse Mrs. Williams $150,000 for stolen funds and pay an additional $50,000 in punitive damages. He will sign a formal acknowledgement that the professional achievements he claimed in his prior position were in fact the work of Mrs. Williams. If he fails to comply with any part of this order, Mrs. Williams may pursue further legal action, including garnishment of wages. She looked at me. Mrs. Williams, do you wish to add anything? I stood. No, Your Honor, I said. Justice has already spoken. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. They asked if I felt vindicated, if I had anything to say to other women in similar situations. I answered simply. I feel free, I said. That is better than vindicated. When they asked what was next, I smiled. Everything, I said. Everything is next. In the months that followed, my life unfolded like a story I would not have believed 2 years earlier. Williams Technology Solutions grew to 10 employees, then 15. We landed a 3-year contract with a major national corporation worth $15 million. I accepted a dual role as Chief Innovation Officer for Lawson Technologies, working remotely 3 days a week while still running my own company. I spoke at conferences in Chicago, Dallas, and Los Angeles about innovation and ethics in technology. One keynote in particular changed everything. The organizers of a National Women in Technology conference invited me to speak on building success after setback. I stood on a stage in front of 5,000 people in a bright red dress and told the story I once thought would break me. I talked about the accident, the divorce, the fraud, the rehab, the business. I talked about rebuilding my body while rebuilding my life. When I finished, the standing ovation went on so long I did not know where to look. Afterward, woman after woman lined up to talk to me. Some were young, starting their careers, already dealing with bosses who stole their ideas. Others were older, leaving marriages after decades of quiet erosion. They told me about partners who dismissed their dreams, managers who took credit for their work, families who told them to stop aiming so high. I listened to every story, looked every woman in the eye, and said versions of the same thing. Document everything, know your worth, and do not let anyone convince you are smaller than you know yourself to be. A few months later, a publisher reached out after watching a recording of that keynote. They wanted a book. I spent early mornings and late nights writing, sitting at my kitchen table in my new apartment with deep blue bedroom walls, soft green living room walls, and yes, a purple office. I wrote about pain and betrayal, but also about joy and freedom. By the time the manuscript was done, I realized it was not really a story about Evan at all. It was a story about me. Somewhere along the way, Nadia mentioned that Evan had been released on parole and was living with his mother, Lydia. He tried to get a job at a startup, she said one evening over takeout. They searched his name and found the court records and the public statement from his old company. He did not even make it past the first interview. I took a sip of my tea. I hope he finds a way to live with himself, I said. But his life is not something I need to spend energy on. Months later, I saw him by accident. I was picking up coffee near my office when I turned and saw Evan at the counter wearing a delivery company uniform, holding a stack of packages. For a moment, time stretched. Our eyes met. His face went pale. I paid for my drink, nodded once, and walked past him without a word. Outside, Nadia was waiting and had seen the whole thing through the window. That was cold, she said, half shocked, half admiring. That was closure, I said. I do not owe him a conversation. My company passed $10 million in annual revenue. I trained for and ran a 10-kilometer race, crossing the finish line in under an hour with my parents and my team cheering at the end. I joined a salsa class just because I wanted to, stumbling through the first few sessions until my instructor, Omar, laughed and said, You move like someone who finally trusts her body. I smiled. I do, I said. More than I ever have. One summer afternoon, my office phone rang and my assistant said, "A woman named Sierra is on the line." I hesitated, then picked up. "Janelle, please do not hang up," Sierra said, her voice thin. "I need your help. Evan is not paying child support. My job barely covers rent. I am drowning here." I closed my eyes briefly. "You made choices," I said evenly. "You chose to have an affair with a married man. You chose to move into my house while I was in a hospital bed. The consequences of those choices are yours, not mine." "But I have a baby," Sierra said, her voice cracking. "So do many women," I replied. "They figure it out without calling the ex-wife of the man who hurt them. I hope you get the support you need." "You will not get it from me." There was a small, stunned silence. "You have changed," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "I have." Then I hung up and told my assistant to filter my calls more carefully. When the first copies of my book arrived, I opened the box with shaking hands. The cover showed a city skyline and a woman standing with her back to the camera, facing the light. "Reclaiming Your Power," the title read. Inside, my story unfolded from that buzzing hospital room all the way to the office where I now stood. At the book launch in Chicago, the line wrapped around the block. Women handed me copies with sticky notes marking passages that had made them feel seen. On New Year's Eve, I threw a party in my apartment. My parents came, carrying homemade food. My team arrived with champagne and laughter. Friends from dancing class and the gym squeezed onto my balcony to watch the fireworks reflect off the water. At midnight, as the countdown ended and everyone shouted and hugged, I raised my glass. "To endings that turned out to be beginnings," I said. "To pain that turned into power. To losing everything that did not matter, so we could gain everything that does." Everyone clinked their glasses against mine. Later, after the last guest left and the apartment had gone quiet, I stood by the window and looked out at the city lights. 2 years earlier, I had been lying in a hospital bed wondering if I would ever walk again while a man I thought loved me tried to throw me away. Now, I was standing on my own 2 feet in a home I had chosen, running a company I had built, living a life that felt unmistakably mine. Somewhere out there, Evan existed in whatever small life he had left. But he was no longer the center of my story. My phone buzzed with a new email, this time from a major technology magazine. "Ms. Williams," it read, "we would like to feature you in our Innovators Under 35 issue as one of the top technology leaders of your generation." I smiled, marked the email to respond in the morning, and turned off the lights. I did not need to replay the past anymore. I had walked out of the worst chapter of my life and into the one I was always meant to write. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.